Hello and welcome to another edition of From the Pavilion End. Um, we are back since our recording our preview show only 3 days back. So we are back to recording the review for the fifth test between India and England. Today is the third day, which is also the final day for the test match and the series. And this is the review of the fifth test played between India and England.
So our podcast is available on Spotify. Just search From the Pavilion End. We are also available on Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, and on YouTube Podcast. Please show your love by subscribing and following the podcast. And please like the episode and share it with your friends.
So we welcome Krishnendu and Gaurav for this review. Thanks, Krishnendu. Thanks, Gaurav, for joining in. What a test match we have seen in Dharamshala. First of all, Krishnendu, before we even start on the test match, on the cricket being played, a line or two about the location, about the backdrop. Is this the most picturesque cricketing venue that can ever be that you have ever seen?
It's probably the most picturesque cricketing venue in this country. There are some beautiful grounds in New Zealand that I can remember. I also love the ground in Chesterfield in England, at the backdrop of the castle behind the stadium. So there are some beautiful grounds across the world, but in terms of India, this is the most picturesque ground we have, and even the aesthetics of the stadium matches the city that it is situated in, with the pagoda, with the Buddhist pagoda and all. So yeah, it's a great stadium to watch cricket. And as far as I know, a lot of English fans actually flew down to India just to watch this test match. So yeah, it was a great atmosphere, great spirit, and a wonderful game.
Gaurav, what about Dharamshala as a permanent test venue every year?
Um, I'm not quite sure about that because in India is such a big country, so many test venues. For example, Wankhede and Eden Gardens or Chepauk or Chinnaswamy hasn't hosted a test match for a while now. For Eden Gardens, I know its last test match was played in 2019. So it's been 5 years. So it's difficult to have a permanent test venue like Dharamshala. I mean, having a permanent test venue like Dharamshala in India, for that matter. But every now and then, it's nice to be playing in such a beautiful backdrop of Himalayas, the Dholada Range, and all in Dharamshala, one of the most prettiest grounds in the world.
So let's move towards the cricket being played, or basically the one of the narratives that was being played before the match started was that England's cricket does not deserve a 4-1. They deserve a 3-2. Well, guess what? In one of those parameters, England actually did manage a 3-2, and it was England 3, India 2. No points for guessing, but it was winning the toss. Quite some, narratives of both some Indian journalists as well as most 90% foreign journalists. It is win the toss in India, you win the toss, you win the match. And here we have England were 3-2 winners of the toss. Did the toss did not play a role at all, or was it that England were probably not equipped enough to take advantage of winning the toss?
you don't bat well, you can win as many tosses as you want. But if you are going to get bowled out for 218 on that kind of a batting surface on the first day of the test match, you can win the next 10 tosses, you will definitely lose the next 10 test matches. It was a classic batting track. At 100 for one, it looked like England were on course to score 400, 450, and suddenly Olipop just sauntered out of his crease and missed the ball completely, and the match turned. I think England's batting.
On that Ollie Pope dismissal, I am very, I would say, mildly surprised that the English press did not accuse the Indian wicketkeeper of some underhand dealings, saying that Ollie Pope was mid-pitch trying to, do some gardening. He was so far away, so he was probably doing some gardening, and it was the crooked brain of the Indian wicketkeeper who, probably stumped him out, just like they did for Alex Carey against Bairstow in the Ashes. So
I find the kind of batting that I've seen from England in the last couple of test matches on to be honest, pretty good batting traps. Let's remember Rajkot. Rajkot was the excellent batting track. What did England do? Then again here in Dharamshala, excellent batting track. Even today, there were no demons on the track. The ball, there was maybe one or two balls were turning. Other than that, there were no demons on the track. And simply first, if you are going to score 218 in the first innings of a test match in India, while batting first, you are not going to win. You're going to lose 10 out of 10 test matches because Indian batsmen are not going to just fit away the advantage.
Yeah.
On these kind of
You can be the champion tosser, but you may not be the champion on the ground. But guess what? The man who was the champion on the ground was a Manchester City fan, Kuldeep Yadav.
That's unfortunate.
That's unfortunate. Gaurav, an Indian spinner taking 5 of the top 6 of the opponents on a first day pitch where India has lost the toss. I can't recall, I mean, in my memory, such a thing happening. I mean, at least for a pitch which was mildly, it was not, it was a proper batting pitch, I think, on the first day. Where do you place this bowling effort of Kuldeep?
It was top class bowling effort because on the first day of the test match, it was a belter of a wicket. And I'm still perplexed how England got out to 218 on that kind of a surface. And it's special thanks to Kuldeep Yadav. I mean, the ball he got bowled to get Zak Crawley out was tremendous. I mean, as I was hearing one of the podcasts in Australia, they were saying that it didn't have the aesthetics of a ball getting past the bat like a batting dismissal, but it was one of the finest deliveries you can produce. The turn, the drift, the more than the turn and beating batsman. I mean, with the turn, it was the drift that made that wicket possible. And Zak Crawley had absolutely no clue. And remember, Zak Crawley is a very, very tall batsman, and he can cover the spin with his foot movement. But in spite of that, and also the ball to Johnny Bairstow, the googly was very well disguised googly, which Johnny Bairstow couldn't pick. And also the very sharp googly he bowled to Ben Stokes. So suddenly the match turned on its head. And I didn't know, I have still no idea what Ollie Pope was trying to do in the last over before lunch. I mean, he wasn't picking Kuldeep Yadav for sure. But when you are not picking Kuldeep Yadav, why are you having a walk to the bowler? Just like that. I mean,
and the wicket was basically predicted by Dhruv Jurel. Ollie Pope or today what Ben Duckett did, it is they were basically not sure about their defense.
I want to point out a little bit on Kuldeep's dismissals. In Ranchi, if you remember, the ball that he bowled to Crawley, it was similar leg break, but it was pitched slightly, in the good length
Shorter.
area, and they were asking
It is short.
Crawley to actually, because Crawley was coming on the front foot, he was asking Crawley to actually drive on the front foot. This ball was further down. It was closer to the pitch in the fifth test, the Dharamshala first day ball. It was further down. So, so the turn was much more sharper, because at that point in the Ranchi match, because the pitch was a little bit slow, so he was inviting Crawley to come forward and then beat him in that flight as well as in the turn. In Dharamshala, because it was slightly faster, he did not need that additional, guile that is needed to beat him on the, on the move. He just spun it, and he just spun it from underneath the eye line of Crawley. All Crawley had to do was do a forward defense, but Crawley's defense against spin is so poor. Like Krishnendu mentioned, these guys are so susceptible to defending against spin, that he could not defend in a straight line, and that's why he got beaten and got bowled. The ball to Bairstow landed in the exact same spot that the ball to Crawley did, and only thing
And it turned away.
it went away. So I mean that was amazing kind of trickery.
The thing with
And
Kuldeep
that
is, if you remember, Kuldeep went to England and in a one-day match he got around 6 wickets. And the next match onwards, England basically played him from the back foot because his pace was pretty slow. It was easy to play from his back foot. It is not easy to play Kuldeep on the back foot now because he has increased his pace. So Kuldeep has actually worked on his craft, improved as a bowler, and I have to give credit to Rohit Sharma for encouraging Kuldeep over the last couple of years. Because if you remember, Kuldeep's career did go a little off track between 2019 World Cup and the 2023 World Cup. With the 2020, 21, 22, his career went a bit off track. I think Rohit Sharma and Rahul Dravid deserve credit for getting Kuldeep back on track.
another thing I like to point out here, apart from the pace factor in Kuldeep's bowling, in previous instances when Kuldeep used to bowl the googly, you could pick that with the line of the deliveries, because the most of the googlies came from if the right hander is facing Kuldeep Yadav, the googlies are those which pitched on or leg stump, on the leg stump or just outside the leg stump of the batsman. You could pick the googly on line. Nowadays, just like the Bairstow dismissal and the Crawley dismissal, he can bowl those googlies and the conventional leg spinners from the same spot. And it really becomes difficult for the batsman who is not picking him from his hand. It's very difficult for the batsman to make that adjustment so much late in the crease, actually.
Yeah, and there is no other credit that can be given to Kuldeep Yadav more than that. What all I can say that he has the best strike rate in the history of Test cricket since Second World War. The only guy who who has better strike rate than him played before the war. So all time, he is the second best strike rate when you take a cutoff of 50 test wickets. If I say 50 test wickets, somebody might say, oh, why are you, hyping somebody who has just taken 50 test wickets? Recently, there was one of the English journalists who said that left arm wrist spin is bowled only by idiots.
Yeah,
You bowl,
yeah,
you
yeah.
bowl, you bowl
You need to be a complete idiot.
right arm off spin finger spin because you get greater control, but the ball goes towards because predominantly batsmen are right-handed. So you bowl right arm finger spin, so you gain control, but the ball goes towards the leg. You bowl right arm wrist spin because although you lose that control, but the ball is going away from
Turning
the
away.
right-hander.
Yeah.
Now you have to be a crazy idiot to bowl a left arm wrist spin because not only are you losing your accuracy, your control, you're also bowling that ball towards the batsman's leg side, right hand batsman's leg side. So
I think it's remarkable that Kuldeep has so much control over his bowling. He hardly bowls in short balls.
yeah,
Hardly bowls in short balls.
so the point here is that Kuldeep Yadav is probably in the all-time list of left-hand wrist spinners. He's already second in the all-time list. The top being Paul Adams, who has taken 120 or 130 odd wickets. So Kuldeep's 50 wickets is not a small quantum in that context. Below Kuldeep would be somebody like Sandakan or something like that. So when you consider a left arm wrist spin at that point of time, Kuldeep Yadav has achieved something truly remarkable. Did India miss a major trick by not giving Ashwin that new ball? Ashwin has taken the new ball, or rather newish ball, in Ranchi, in the second innings of Ranchi, in the second innings of Dharamshala, and newish ball. He was the first spinner to be introduced in the first innings of Dharamshala also.
If Ashwin didn't take the new ball, Ben Duckett would not have scored his only century of this series. So that was charity from India towards Ben Duckett. Yeah, I think giving Ashwin the new ball on Indian tracks is a no-brainer because he's probably the best spinner I have seen with the new ball. The amount of control, the way he uses the seam, the angles of his seam, different kind of variations with the new ball, which makes Ashwin a very dangerous customer, and he gets bounce. I think a lot of people actually misread Ashwin when they say he depends on turn from the track when it comes to the dusty wickets of India. But Ashwin's wickets come from bounce. When he gets bounce from a track, like Dharamshala, if there is bounce on the track, if you take Ashwin to Australia on tracks that has bounce, Ashwin will take wickets because he uses bounce really well.
So it was unique to hear from Joe Root before this test match started. And Joe Root was asked, how do you play between or distinguish between the two premier finger spinner off spinners that we have in our current modern day, Nathan Lyon and Ravi Ashwin? And both of them, Root has played both of them quite successfully throughout his career. And so he was in a unique position to talk about them. And the thing about Ashwin, he said, was that do not play his previous ball. So, which basically means that Ashwin plays with your mind and frazzles your mind in a way that, you think that, okay, this is the ball, okay, I come forward. The next ball is slightly towards the off. I come forward again. Slightly towards off, come forward again. And suddenly your head is not where it should be. You're way in front. And then suddenly one ball will dip and will probably, spin towards you. And you will try and, play with your bat. It will go to the, backward short leg or to the forward short leg. Or you can even be bold. Ben Stokes, poor guy, was frazzled already by Kuldeep Yadav. First, he was frazzled by Jasprit Bumrah. He couldn't pick Jasprit Bumrah left, right, or center. He started dropping his bat whenever Jasprit Bumrah got him out. Then he couldn't pick Kuldeep Yadav. He burnt as many reviews as he got out. Every time Kuldeep Yadav got him out. And then finally, at the last innings of the tour, he got back to being getting out to Ravi Ashwin, just like the ways that he used to get out in 2016, just like the days that he used to get out in 2021. Uh, Gaurav, sometimes, we kind of do not give the proper respect that is due to our legends. Like in our preview show, you would have seen Krishnendu talk about Anil Kumble being labeled that he cannot spin the ball. Without spinning the ball, he took 600 odd wickets. We think that Ravi Ashwin cannot take a fifer outside Asia, or rather, let me correct it. He has taken loads of wickets in West Indies, so it's Asia and West Indies. So we just try to figure out the narrowest or narrow possible margins through which we can beat our heroes. Sometimes a 5-wicket haul is not needed. Sometimes a 3-wicket or a 4-wicket haul can also lead to India winning that match. Today, Ashwin did not take a 10 for. If he had taken a 10 for, he would have become the only bowler ever to take a 10-wicket haul on his 100th, or only cricketer ever to take a 10-wicket haul on his 100th match. That is in sharp, probably, contrast to some of the other times when we think, oh, he did not take a 10 for. Oh, he did not take a 5 for in Australia, but he has won us matches in Australia with his bowling. He has saved a match in Australia with his batting.
Ashwin has been a great servant of Indian cricket. There's absolutely no doubt about that. I mean, a guy who gets to 500 plus wickets in Test career must be special. But it is also true that some of his performances overseas has been a bit undone.
How
I'll
can
say
you say that?
bit.
Do you think the English people talk in the same tones about James Anderson? Do you think the English people talk in the same tones about Ben Stokes? Do you think the English people talk in the same terms about, let's say, Stuart Broad? Do you think the Australians talk in the same terms about Shane Warne? Do you think?
I mean,
Do you think? Do you
Shenwan,
think
apart from India, Shenwan has been successful all over the world.
So
Uh,
why should we, in our own country try and say, oh, you did not do this there? Probably the fifer was not needed for
For
every,
example,
but for every Southampton,
for
I'll
example,
also point out a Melbourne 2021.
he has been very good in Australia, to say the least. I mean, he's been really good in Australia, but in England or in South Africa especially, he's been very poor. He's
South Africa in the last 10 years, the pitches that they have provided to India, whenever India goes, they have been completely seamer-friendly tracks. Completely seamer-friendly tracks. Maybe hardly one or two pitches here and there might have helped spinners, even though there was no help. So finger spinners, if we are going to judge finger spinners based on their records in South Africa, New Zealand, England, then there has not been a great finger spinner in the history of cricket. In the history of cricket, there hasn't been a single great finger spinner. If you are going to judge them based on their record in England, New Zealand, and South Africa, wrist spinners are different. Even England, New Zealand, even if you go to England, so apart from the Southampton Test match, which I agree, Ashwin underperformed. In the last 10 years, England have produced, until this baseball revolution came, England have been producing completely seamer-friendly tracks. Completely seamer-friendly tracks.
And now after baseball, they have started producing roads, the finest roads outside of Pakistan.
They're producing
now in England. Now coming back to this match, I think we can safely say that Ravi Ashwin is the finest finger spinner that we have in this generation. He's probably better than Leon. He has outbowled Leon in the matches that he has played with Leon, both in India as well as in Australia. And he simply does not have Mitchell Stark creating those footmarks for him. he simply doesn't have the luxury of playing in a spinning track in New Zealand, because New Zealand are so wary of giving, a track to their the three Aussie pacers. So I think, given all of these, and he is one of the four players who has taken 5 wickets at least in every test. Even in this series where he performed so poorly that we kind of thought that this is his last series, he has taken more than 26. He has taken more than 5 wickets in the 5 matches. But I have a question specifically for Gaurav on Jimmy. Sorry, Gaurav, bowler 1 has a away average of 30.4 and a neutral average of 11.25. And in away terms, he takes 3.8 wickets every match. Bowler 2, his away average is 30.66 and bowler 2's neutral average is 20.54. Okay. And bowler 2 takes 3.2 wickets per away match. Okay. Who would you say is a better?
It's difficult to say because you haven't quoted the sample size.
Okay.
I mean, how many test matches he's played and how many
Both of them
innings
have
he's
played. Both of them have played a very significant number.
scored here,
So
na?
one person has played around 80 odd away matches. Another person has played around 40 odd away matches.
Oh, the guy with 80 odd test matches to have the same numbers, I think he slightly ages in my point of view. And 80 odd test matches is a lot of test match.
Yeah, in 80 odd test matches, his away numbers are 30.66 is the average, and neutral is 20.54, and he takes 3.2 wickets per away test, away/neutral test. The other guy, in his 40 test matches in away and neutral, he averages 30.4 away,
30.7.
7.25 neutral, and he takes 3.8 in every match.
Similar kind of a stats.
Okay, so 3.2 is Jimmy Anderson, 3.8 is Ravi Ashwin.
Not much difference, a home track bully. I mean, see, a guy who has
No,
played
no,
180.
so my question is not here on Ashwin. Ashwin, we have discussed. On Jimmy Anderson, where do you place him?
One of the all-time greats.
Good. I hope you would use that same phrase for Ravi Ashwin too, because it's the same, right? The numbers are same, if not better, because
I haven't.
Jimmy
I
Anderson's
haven't.
Jimmy Anderson's away average and neutral average both are worse than Ravi Ashwin. Jimmy Anderson's wickets per match in the away scenario is also worse than Ravi Ashwin. So I hope you will use the same term for Ravi
No,
Ashwin.
I haven't.
I have a
I haven't demeaned any sort of
No, that's
statement
okay.
regarding.
That's okay. That's okay. I think we have made the point. Krishnendu, let me come to you. Krishnendu, 700 wickets at 26 or 450 wickets at 22 or 23, which is better for the legacy?
450 wickets at 22, I think, is the better record when it comes to uh, fast bowlers. But Anderson's quality is his longevity. At 41, for a fast bowler to be bowling at 41 and taking 7, I don't think there'll be another fast bowler who's going to take 700 wickets.
True.
So it's not going to happen. And it hasn't happened yet. So it required Anderson's longevity, the amount of cricket he has played over 20 years. He's still very fit. He will take a bucket loads of wickets against England and West Indies in England over the summer. And I'm sure he's going to get close to, if he plays 2 more years and if he gets a couple of English summers, he won't break Muldy's record, but he will get close to it.
So the way I see it, I completely agree with you. A 450 wicket at 22 is better for legacy than 700 for at 27, which is why I feel Dale Steyn is a far better uh, pace bowler
Yeah,
than
of course.
Jimmy Anderson.
No question about it.
For a bowler for a batsman, if he is consistent across generations, that speaks for something because eras change. For a bowler, when he is consistent or he is having such a prolonged thing, you always automatically think of what was the role that he was playing. Was he your spearhead? Was he the stock bowler? Was he the bowler who was supposed to bowl dry? Was he the bowler? Because 27 is no great average to write home about. 700 wickets it might be. So look at Murli. Murli took 800 wickets, but he took them at an average of 22.
So
He
you are
is of
saying
his
that
career at
Kapil
this
Dev
phase of his
wasn't a
career
great bowler?
in the
I
summer.
think with Kapil Dev, we can all agree he played 3 more years than he should.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Everybody can
Kapil,
agree.
Kapil reached a
Yes.
high with the 1991 India-Australia tour. If he had retired after that, his numbers would have been absolutely, top of the class. Beyond,
We are not saying Anderson is not a great bowler. He's a great bowler.
yeah,
But Dale
exactly,
Steyn is a better bowler. Dale Steyn is a
exactly.
Dale Steyn is an all-time legend.
That is precisely the point. I will pay money every time to watch Dale Steyn come in and bowl. I will read about Anderson's spells. I will probably, see some highlights, but I will not be enthused by Anderson. Right now, what Anderson is doing is that he's taking 4 tests to get 10 wickets. Kids are coming in to bash him left, right, and center. It's not helping his legacy. So I don't know if this 700, we remember him by the 700 wickets, or we think that, like you said about Kapil, that he overstayed his time. Probably he should have gone. Enough about the bowling. Let's come to the batsmen before we finish. Krishnendu, Rohit Sharma and Shubman Gill, 2 players who we thought that had probably underwhelming series. Shubman Gill did play a very important role in the chase. Both of them actually, Rohit Sharma and Shubman Gill, both of them played very important role in the chase on Ranchi. How do you see this 2 centuries that both of them got?
I never felt Rohit was out of form. He was getting out. He was looking good, scoring runs, and suddenly he was getting out. I don't think Shubman Gill looked out of form. But Rohit never looked out of form. He was like, if you remember Virat Kohli in the 2021, 2022, he came out, looked good 2030. Suddenly he got a good ball and he got out. It was happening with Rohit too. Shubman Gill was actually looked out of form at the start of the season. He was struggling when he looked scratchy. Even the first 100 that he scored in the second test, if I remember, it was a very scratchy innings. It was not a pretty innings to look at. But he still struggled and scored those runs. And I think that knock actually helped him to gain some confidence. He has looked much better. And as I said one of our shows, the Shubman Gill looked a nervous starter. I think he has improved. He looks a little more assured when he's coming into bat. And whatever people have been saying about Shubman Gill in the last 3 or 4 months, I always believe this kid has a lot of talent. There is absolutely no question about it. If he applies himself, he's going to score a bucket loads of runs. I'm convinced. With Rohit, I think Rohit will. We will need Rohit in Australia because Rohit is a good player of fast bowling. He can on like bouncy tracks, he can actually score runs quickly. If we will need Rohit in Australia, I think we'll beat New Zealand. I think we are playing West Indies too. New Zealand and West Indies we'll take care of without any hedge. But in Australia, we'll need this Rohit who can actually
So
score
Rohit,
runs.
I was surprised to look at one of the stats which showed us that since he has started opening, Rohit Sharma is the second best opener in Test cricket behind Karunaratne. Dimuth Karunaratne is probably the best. Behind him, the second best is Rohit Sharma. And he
The
has
thing with Rohit is he has not played a lot of test matches because of injuries. So this I sometimes forget. But
yeah.
we sometimes equate his one-day form with his test form. He has been actually scoring runs in test cricket, so it's not surprising at all.
Right, right. The other thing about about Shubman Gill is that I still believe that his defense is not of that nature where he can come and you know defend against the likes of Cummins, Hazelwood, Stark, or Anderson in England, or Rabada in South Africa. He doesn't have.
Shubman faced Stark, Cummins, and Hazelwood in Australia and scored a brilliant 90 in Cabas. So
Yeah,
only test
but
match that he has played in Australia.
yeah,
So
but that Shubman was new, fresh to the international
on a
cricket. Teams
I
would
think
have.
on Australian tracks with bounce with not much lateral movement, I think Shubman will score runs. England, I agree. He will struggle in England.
Mm,
But in
mm,
Australia, I think he'll score runs.
mm. Okay. Let's focus on the two newcomers and the two scores of 50 plus that they scored. Um, Gaurav, what did you make of Sarfaraz Khan's second 50 and the way that he got out? And your first impression of Devdutt Padikkal and the way that he got out?
Um, in terms of Sarfaraz innings, Sarfaraz actually looked good once again after Rajkot. I mean, he had a poor test match in Ranchi, but it can happen to anyone. But here he looked really fine. I mean, one contest I was always looking for was how he fares against Mark Wood. And in that case, actually, he passed with distinction. I mean, the way he battled against Wood and scored runs. I mean, sixes and fours he hit off Wood. Another thing you asked me about the dismissal, and dismissal I was a bit disappointed because there was 100 for the taking for Sarfaraz, and he needs to know that all the time you cannot score runs or hit boundaries. And there are phases of Test cricket where you need to defend, and especially after when you start a new session, always you are on zero. In your mind, you must always be on zero so you can start again fresh because it's not very easy to start after a break. In terms of Devdutt Padikkal, I thought he played well, but one aspect which I didn't like about Padikkal was while facing the spinners, he always went to the back foot. Even to the fuller deliveries, he went to the back foot. So, and that's how his dismissal was brought up. I mean, impression, I think, definitely Sarfaraz is more what I can say, refreshing talent to watch. And Padikkal will have his time under the sun. I mean, what he has done in this test match is fine. Pretty, I mean, 65 on debut, anyone could have taken it. But then Sarfaraz looked more promising
I think
to
the
me.
next test match India will play in India. Padikkal will lose his spot to Virat Kohli. So it's going
Yes,
to
yes. I
happen.
mean, Virat Kohli will come back against New Zealand. And so, I mean, I can see Sarfaraz playing at least as of now, unless and until KL Rahul comes back and takes his spot.
Hmm. One batsman that we have not talked about probably, mainly because he has not scored 100, but he has scored some pretty 50s. And Krishan, I want to talk about Zak Crawley here. Zak Crawley again scored 79 in the first innings without getting that 100. And he is the third foreigner to score more than 400 runs in the last 10 years, which is very difficult. It's last 10 years, meaning I'm talking about the Jadeja, Ashwin, duo's reign. The only other two players are Steve Smith in 2016 17 and Joe Root in 2016-17. Steve Smith had scored 499 with 300s. Joe Root had scored 491 with 100. Zak Crawley has scored 407 without 100. where do you see Zak Crawley? Is he going to steer clear of that, that 30 mid 30s kind of an average, or did he prosper because Rohit Sharma did not use the spinners early enough?
I think I'm not sure whether he said it or not. I think Michael once has said something very. Michael has been saying stupid things throughout the series, but he has said one of the most bizarre things I've heard from any former cricketer. Zak Crawley is the greatest test batsman who has an average of 31.
Obviously, he hasn't seen Shubman Gill then.
so I'm like, what? Michael Warner said this. With Zak Crawley, I think he has looked the most comfortable batsman in the English team, apart from Joe Root in the last 2 test matches. He has looked the most comfortable, he has looked the part. But the problem with Zak Crawley, again, the same problem that he has had most English batsmen in this team has. They don't trust their defense. They do not trust their defense. They do not trust them. They do not trust how to go through a spell of 10 overs where they're not going to play an attacking shot. So they have to go out. Brendan McCallum has said, he said about Zak Crawley, I think before the last Ashes, that Zak Crawley is never going to be consistent because he's not that kind of a batsman. Then why are we playing in Test cricket if he's not going to be consistent? Zak Crawley needed to convert one of those 60s, 70s into a big 100. He didn't because he has those frailties that most English batsmen in this team has. But he has looked the most comfortable. Even against spin, he has looked comfortable. You said spinners were not introduced. Even against spin, he has, apart from Joe Root, he has better footwork than all the other English batsmen. He can come down the track. He took down Ashwin. He has taken down Jadeja. So he has that ability, but the problem is just do not have that, at this point, do not have a temperament to play long innings. Even though he has a double 100 in Test cricket, he just doesn't have the temperament to go long.
Actually, to win in India, you need to score big daddy hundreds.
Yeah, The only Test match that England won was when a batsman scored 190 odd. That's the only Test match that they have won. So they have to understand that England. How many overs have England? Has England played more than 90 overs in any other innings? I don't think so. So how are you going to win Test matches in India if you're not going to play 90 overs?
So you would have seen that we have taken a different approach to reviewing this test, because from the very first morning itself, when Kuldeep Yadav took all those 5 wickets and then Ashwin took those 4 wickets, they got England burnt 3 reviews without adding a run in 3 different overs as their 3 middle order batsmen got out. So we have not talked about that. Another thing that we haven't touched about, Krishnendu, is what happened with Bairstow and Gill in today's session. So apparently Gill and Anderson had some tiff. Yesterday, when the broadcasters asked them that what had happened, Gill said, "Oh, I don't want to bring that into public." So everyone said, "Okay, fine, that's a very mature thought." But today, Bairstow came in, stood right over the stump microphone and asked Gill, "Hey, why did you ask Jimmy to retire?" So, Gill says, "Yeah, I asked him to retire because he's old." And Bairstow says, "But he then got you out immediately. What about that?" Gill says, "Yeah, but I had scored 100. So you can get me out after I score 100. So then Gill asks Bairstow, "How many 100 have you scored in this series?" And then Bairstow, just because you have to give an answer back, he says, "How many have you scored?" Full stop. Okay. In that same over, which was being bowled by Kuldeep Yadav, on the 4th ball, Bairstow gets LBW. He goes back muttering something to Gill. It's one of the funniest things that happened.
Yeah, I think the two things is, first of all, if Anderson and Gill, the two protagonists of the story, if they were comfortable with keeping this between themselves, Bairstow had no business talking about it, especially in a series where he hasn't scored anything.
Exactly.
He has no clueless.
Yeah, so Bairstow, Gaurav, I want to talk to you about Bairstow a little bit. If this was a T20 match of 2 innings, Bairstow would have played two of the best innings ever in 100th match possible. He played two T20 innings in the first one and second one. In the first one, he hit 2 4s and 2 6s. In the second one, he hit 3 4s and 3 6s. Where do you see Bairstow in the pantheon of players who have played 100 tests?
Very difficult question, but I think it's one of the worst averages for those guys who have played 100 test matches. I mean, 36 average. He must be quite lucky to survive for 100 test matches.
So I will
In spite
say,
of having.
I will say this much. He has played 100 test matches. If he had
Hmm.
been playing for any other country, anywhere, forget
Hmm.
India, let's say Pakistan or Sri Lanka or Australia, he would have not reached 100. Before we finish, must talk about one more guy, that's Shoaib Bashir. Got his second fifer in the series, but also got hit for 170 odd runs. So that's also there. And if I can be allowed to say, he showed his parentage or his heritage by sending a sending a DRS signal after getting bowled. Okay, so he showed his heritage by actually signaling for a third umpire after he was bowled. Joe Root actually pointed it out, and then he had to go back. Poor fellow, I don't know whether he'll have another test match in his career or not, but England has actually gone through their spinners like mercilessly. These bowlers have been they're kids, and they have been asked to bowl 40, 50 overs, which was
With Bashir, I have to say one thing: you won't see Bashir the next time England comes to India.
I'm quite sure Hartley and Bashir has played their quota of tests, because Jack Leach will be
But
playing
I
again.
think, it will be unfortunate for
It's
cricket
not
fans all
unfortunate.
over
It
the
is
world.
written. It is written. I take it
I mean,
from me.
Bashir has been exceptional.
It's not
Whatever
exceptional.
three test matches.
He was supposed to come here, bowl 50 overs every match, and then go back and be gone. There have been far many England spinners who have done that.
Remember
So
Dom Bess in the last series?
Dombes, or Liam Dawson, a lot of such examples. That was all about the fifth test. We will be back again to talk about the series overall, to talk about baseball, and to talk about the one person who probably defined this series, Yashasvi Jaiswal. We haven't spoken about him today, but there will be a separate episode where we will talk about all of this. Thanks again for joining with us. Keep following us and send us your comments about how you feel our show is going. Thank you. It's been a pleasure bringing this episode to you. If you like this episode, please like and share it. Please also subscribe or follow our podcast.